It's way too early in the morning for this. I haven't even had breakfast! Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about a brand new studio album from Static X entitled Project Regeneration Volume 2. This is the 8th full-length studio album from this American industrial metal crew, the second in this Project Regeneration album series, and the second with Edsel Dope contributing vocals and guitar in place of the late Wayne Static. And yes, before somebody says it, I am well aware that officially speaking, it is not Edsel Dope on vocals and guitar, but rather the mysterious Zero. His identity remains a secret for the ages. Not even the collective efforts of Sherlock Holmes, Columbo, and Batman could crack open such a case. But also, let's not kid ourselves here. Just because Static X wants to pretend we don't know, doesn't mean we don't have to pretend we don't know. I am not what you would call a fan of Static X, but I do have genuine respect for them. I think they have their own sound and vibe, blending aggressive, pummeling metal riffage and rave-friendly beats and electronics into something accessible and fun. By no means mind-blowing or revolutionary, but fun. I've enjoyed albums like Wisconsin Death Trip, Machine, and Cannibal to varying degrees. And the band's status as a gateway band for an entire generation of listeners is something that needs to be acknowledged and recognized. The fact is, tons of people were introduced to heavier and more experimental forms of rock and metal and industrial and alternative music through Static X. And it's from this place of respect that I look at what Static X are doing, and I shake my head in disappointment and occasional disgust. With Wayne Static no longer in the picture, Static X is left without its most important member, and rather than address this in some meaningful capacity, Static X would rather profit off of Wayne's legacy by digging up old demos and tapes and unfinished and unreleased songs and making them sound as new and as clean and as pretty as possible, whilst Edsel Dope performs on stage in what can only be described as a zombie Wayne Static cosplay. Say what you wish of the Pantera reunion, and Lord knows I have on many an occasion, but at least we don't have Zakk Wylde polishing long-forgotten turds into albums while dressed up as an undead Dimebag Darrell. God damn, the bar is fucking low. Credit where it's due, there were at least a couple of bops and bangers on 2020's Project Regeneration Volume 1, but in general it was an overproduced and somewhat hollow affair that ultimately showed us exactly how the absence of Wayne Static was really hurting Static X, and frankly, the same can mostly be said for Volume 2. The primary difference being that it's clear that Static X were scraping the bottom of the barrel and overcompensating this time around, as the bulk of the material on this album is incredibly uninspired and bleeds together into one derivative techno-metal blob, despite its excessive amount of bells and whistles. Songs like Stay Alive, Kamikaze, and Run For Your Life are mind-numbingly simple and repetitive, all brawn, no brains to speak of whatsoever, filled with generic ham-fisted riffs and lackluster hooks and melodies to an extent where Static X sound derivative of themselves. Meanwhile, Dark Place feels like lethargic boilerplate nu metal, something that Korn would have cut off of 2022's Requiem, and the band goes almost full-blown Korn worship on a cut-like tone as well. The mix of angsty vocals, disorganized pulsing beats and electronics and moody textures brings to mind some intoxicated mutant fusion of Mushroom Head and Nine Inch Nails. Its long, drawn-out finale is especially unnecessary. I feel like I'm watching a superhero movie and I'm waiting for that post-credit scene, but nothing shows up. Speaking of Nine Inch Nails, there's a terrible version of Terrible Lie, filled with exaggerated vocals and whirlwinds of silly sound effects and battering percussion, completely stripping the original cut of its eerie synth-pop vibe and its killer beats and grooves. Zombie stands out for being comically over the top and aggressive as well, with huge chugging riffs and out-of-nowhere guttural belches and screaming vocals. It almost sounds like Motionless in White trying to do a cover of a Rob Zombie cut. I will admit to briefly enjoying the manic, bouncy grooves and overall energy of cuts like Disco Ostego and Grover Yoda Data 14. But that said, I'm not likely to add these songs to any kind of party or workout playlist anytime soon, as they're just not especially memorable beyond that very first listen. The album just straight up falls flat from start to finish. I was often bored and occasionally tempted to turn this off in favor of something like Machine or Cannibal. It's very easy to see why Wayne never finished and released these songs while he was still alive, and it's also very clear that Static X went to great efforts to patch these numbers up rather than just take the fucking L. Frankly, this whole Project Regeneration album series thus far feels like metal's answer to Michael Jackson's posthumous output, namely albums like Michael and Escape. Disingenuous products trying to capitalize on apparent treasure troves of long-forgotten, mediocre material from a dead artist. You can throw as much icing on this sad microwaved cake as you want, Static X. Doesn't change the fact that it's a sad microwaved cake. I'm feeling a strong 1.5 out of 5 on this. It's fair to say that if you fucking love Static X and if you fucking love Volume 1, you're also gonna fucking love Volume 2, and honestly, more power to ya. I went into this and really tried to just turn my brain off and have some fun, but ultimately even its very best moments failed to interest me. If it weren't for the existence of Cult of Static, I'd be tempted to call this the worst Static X album. With this supposedly being the final entry in the Project Regeneration album series, it's unclear where Static X will go from here, but I'd recommend officially unmasking Zero and starting from scratch, because the reality is there's only so much more milk you can squeeze out of this rotting cash cow, if any at all. 1.5 out of 5, it's bad, and Wayne deserves better. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Look, there's even more videos here. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.